The small town of Strasburg, Virginia, had slept peacefully for decades, unaware that a secret lurked behind one familiar face. In 1998, Selena Dalton vanished, leaving her infant daughter, Allison, missing. Today, after 26 long years, the unthinkable happens. The very man everyone trusted, the father of the missing child, is handcuffed and led away. Shock ripples through the community. How did the authorities finally unravel this decades-old mystery? And what does it mean for the missing baby who still holds the town in suspense? This is the story of betrayal, forensic brilliance, and justice delayed but not denied. Before we dive into this chilling story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for the full investigation. In September 19, Strasburg was the kind of town where everyone knew each other, and life moved slowly. Streets were quiet, children played freely, and neighbors waved as cars passed by. But beneath this calm, an invisible tension brewed. Selena Dalton, a young mother of 23, had returned home from her late shift, clutching her infant daughter, Allison. That evening, no one could have imagined the nightmare about to unfold. A life taken, a child vanished, and a family shattered. Local authorities scoured the neighborhood, questioning friends, neighbors, and co-workers. But every lead ran cold. For decades, the town held its breath, whispers spreading like wildfire, rumors painting 1,000 false pictures. Families prayed, investigators hoped, but answers remained elusive. This wasn't just a missing person. Deceit became a silent shadow over the entire community, a mystery frozen in time. Every resident wondered, who could do something so unimaginable, and why? Selena Dalton's last day started like any other. She woke before dawn, prepared breakfast, and checked on baby Allison, her eyes filled with love and worry in equal measure. Friends remembered her cheerful smile, her plans for the week, mundane errands that now feel unbearably significant. At work, she clocked in at the local diner, greeted co-workers, and served customers, as she always had. Surveillance cameras from the area captured fleeting moments. Selena walking across the parking lot, laughing at a customer's joke, unaware that these images would become key evidence decades later. She drove home that evening, her mind on groceries, bills, and bedtime stories, carrying Allison in her car seat. She never returned. Her disappearance was sudden, violent, and incomprehensible. Investigators would later piece together the crime scene. Disturbed furniture, a silent home, no sign of forced entry, only questions that seemed impossible to answer. This ordinary day, frozen in time, became the starting point of a mystery that would haunt Strasburg for 26 years. Allison Kathleen Dalton, just a few months old, disappeared along with her mother. The moment Selena's home was discovered empty, panic rippled through Strasburg. Family members frantically searched the streets, neighbors called in tips, and authorities issued alerts across Virginia. Posters of the baby appeared on telephone poles, grocery stores, and gas stations. Every lead seemed to end in frustration. Witnesses remembered seeing Selena with Allison that morning, but no one could account for their whereabouts later in the day. The infant's disappearance transformed the case from a murder investigation into a desperate search for a missing child. Time became the enemy. Every hour without Allison added weight to the town's collective anxiety. The community, once peaceful, now lived under a cloud of uncertainty. Every door knocked, every phone call made, and every reported sighting became a potential breakthrough or another dead end. The question burned in everyone's mind: who could take a baby and a mother without leaving a trace? And would Allison ever be found alive? When detectives finally entered Selena Dalton's home, the scene was haunting. Furniture was slightly overturned, signs of struggle subtle but undeniable. Blood traces suggested a violent confrontation, yet no weapon was recovered. Investigators meticulously documented every detail: fingerprints, fibers, and the faint scent of a struggle that lingered in the air. It was a crime scene frozen in time, as if the house itself were holding secrets. Neighbors reported nothing unusual, and no forced entry suggested the perpetrator was someone familiar. Officers scoured the property, taking measurements, photographs, and samples that would sit in evidence lockers for decades. Each piece told a story of chaos contained within the walls of an ordinary home. As forensic teams cataloged every clue, a chilling realization set in. This wasn't just about finding a killer. It was about understanding how someone could vanish with a child in plain sight. Every unanswered question added to the weight of the investigation, and every lead that turned cold extended the shadow over the community. Strasburg's quiet streets now held a silent witness to a mystery that would remain unsolved for 26 years. From the very beginning, law enforcement couldn't ignore the most obvious connection. Selena's own family. Her father, Daniel Pumple, became a person of interest almost immediately, not because of concrete evidence, but because of proximity and opportunity. Friends described him as a loving parent, devoted and trustworthy, making the thought of his involvement unthinkable. Detectives tread carefully, aware that accusing a father of harming his child could shatter the community. Interviews were tense. Daniel maintained his innocence with unwavering calm, offering alibis and explanations that seemed plausible. Yet, inconsistencies began to emerge in his statements. Small details didn't align. Timelines conflicted, and vague answers sparked suspicion. Investigators combed through his financial records, phone logs, and personal history, searching for hidden motives or connections. Despite these efforts, nothing definitive surfaced. The case remained in limbo. For the town, Daniel's presence was both comforting and terrifying. Father figure who could protect or destroy. Every neighbor watched him closely, every glance a silent accusation. Yet the evidence remained frustratingly elusive. For detectives, it was a puzzle built on trust, betrayal, and the faintest hint of fear. A challenge that would take decades to solve. The initial investigation into Selena Dalton's disappearance quickly hit a wall. Detectives followed every lead. Interviews, neighborhood canvassing, and evidence collection. But the trail grew colder by the day. Witnesses remembered fragments, neighbors recalled odd noises, and distant tips arrived from surrounding towns, but none offered the breakthrough authorities needed. Forensics in 1998 lacked the technological sophistication available today. DNA testing existed, but partial samples couldn't be matched, and trace evidence remained inconclusive. The case file grew heavy with paperwork and uncertainty. Detectives revisited the home repeatedly, hoping that fresh eyes might uncover a missed clue. Yet each search yielded nothing new. The community's frustration mirrored the investigators' own. Rumors began to circulate, theories multiplied, and false confessions distracted attention from the truth. Months turned into years, and the investigation stalled completely. By 2000, Selena's case was officially cold. The missing child remained a haunting question mark. The father, Daniel Pumple, resumed a semblance of normal life, blending back into a town that could not fully confront the shadow of suspicion. It was a collapse, born not of negligence, but of limitations that modern science would one day overturn. As the investigation stalled, Strasburg began to fracture. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and once trusted friends eyed each other with suspicion. Rumors spread like wildfire, each one twisting reality into something darker. Some swore they saw Daniel acting strangely in the days after Selena's disappearance. Others defended him fiercely, claiming he couldn't possibly be capable of such a crime. Loyalty clashed with fear, and the town became a delicate balancing act between trust and doubt. Community meetings erupted with tension, police updates fueled anxiety, and local journalists tracked every minor development. Families who once felt safe now slept with unease, aware that someone they knew, maybe even loved, could be hiding a deadly secret. The social fabric of Strasburg strained under the weight of uncertainty. Every glance, every casual comment became a potential revelation. This was no longer just an investigation. It was a psychological battleground where suspicion and allegiance collided. The town waited, anxious and divided, for a truth that seemed forever out of reach. Physical evidence from Selena Dalton's home was meticulously preserved, though technology at the time couldn't unlock its secrets. Blood samples, fibers, and minute traces of DNA were stored in climate-controlled evidence lockers, quietly waiting for the day science would catch up. Investigators documented every item. Photographs captured each detail, and logs detailed hours of laborious cataloging. Yet, in 1998, these clues couldn't point to a suspect. The trail remained invisible, buried beneath limitations of the era. Detectives revisited these lockers repeatedly, hoping for a breakthrough, but each attempt ended in frustration. It was as if the truth lay just beyond reach, mocking those who sought it. Every preserved fragment represented a story frozen in time, a silent witness to the crime, patiently waiting for modern forensics to give it a voice. This stored evidence became the key that would one day unravel decades of mystery, turning a cold case into a revelation that would shock the entire community. Over the next 2 decades, Daniel Pumple carefully reconstructed his life in Strasburg. He maintained a quiet presence, avoided attention, and appeared to be the devoted father and husband the community remembered. Friends and neighbors saw nothing suspicious, and the memory of Selena Dalton's disappearance faded into whispers of the past. Yet detectives never stopped watching. Every new lead, every tip, even the faintest, was logged and analyzed. Social media and public records in the 2010s revealed patterns, connections, and small inconsistencies that had gone unnoticed. Despite appearances of normalcy, a shadow lingered over Daniel's life. He attended town events, volunteered at local charities, and interacted with neighbors with a calm facade that hid a lifetime of suspicion. For investigators, this period was both frustrating and enlightening. It showed how carefully a person could hide in plain sight, and as modern forensic technology advanced, the preserved evidence from 1998 became a time capsule, waiting for the day it could speak and reveal the truth behind the decades of deception. In the a new task force specializing in cold cases reopened. Selena Dalton's investigation, led by seasoned detectives experienced in forensic breakthroughs. The team reviewed every detail, archived evidence, witness statements, and decades-old photographs. The case files, once dormant, were now examined with fresh eyes and modern technology. DNA collected from the crime scene was reanalyzed using advanced testing methods, while investigators built a comprehensive timeline of Daniel Pomple's movements. Each piece of evidence, previously overlooked or inconclusive, was reinterpreted with cutting-edge forensic science. Detectives cross-referenced public records, financial data, and even genealogical databases, looking for a breakthrough that had eluded them for 26 years. Slowly, the puzzle began to form a clearer picture. The town remained unaware that this reopening would not only uncover long-hidden truths, but would also lead to an arrest that no one saw coming, a revelation that would shock Strasburg to its core. The breakthrough came from a single, preserved DNA sample, quietly waiting in an evidence locker for more than 2 decades. Modern testing techniques, una bailable, in 1998, allowed forensic scientists to extract a complete profile from fragments once thought useless. Investigators compared it to national databases, scouring matches that could point to distant relatives. Each potential connection was meticulously analyzed, family trees reconstructed, and genetic links traced with painstaking precision. Experts debated every match, confirming accuracy and ruling out false positives. The tension in the lab was palpable. Decades of unanswered questions hinged on a microscopic strand of genetic material. This was the moment where science and persistence intersected. Detectives realized they had the key to unlock the mystery that had haunted Strasburg for over 26 years. Every test, every calculation, every cross-check brought them closer to a truth no one had anticipated. And as the analysis progressed, a chilling possibility emerged. The suspect wasn't a stranger at all. Forensic genealogy became the weapon that shattered decades of deception. By tracing the DNA to distant relatives, investigators constructed an intricate family tree that ultimately led to Daniel Pomple. Each branch revealed connections that were once invisible, each link a step closer to the truth. Genealogists and detectives worked in tandem, cross-referencing public records, birth certificates, and marriage licenses, building a timeline that aligned perfectly with the crime. It was a meticulous puzzle, requiring patience, precision, and a keen understanding of human behavior. Every discovery tightened the net, revealing inconsistencies in past statements and movements. The seemingly ordinary man who had blended seamlessly into the community now stood exposed through science and strategy. This breakthrough not only identified the suspect, but also illustrated the astonishing power of modern investigation techniques. Evidence that could lie dormant for decades suddenly became an unbreakable chain connecting the perpetrator to the crime. For Strasburg, the revelation was shocking, yet inevitable. As the hidden truth clawed its way to the surface, the moment the detectives confirmed Daniel Pompeila's DNA matched the evidence from Selena's home, Strasburg's reality shifted. A quiet, unassuming father, once trusted by everyone, was revealed as the very person responsible for the tragedy that had haunted the town for over 2 decades. Investigators carefully reviewed every alibi, every interview, every minor inconsistency. From the initial investigation, now fully understood in a new light, the revelation sent shockwaves through the community. Friends, neighbors, and even extended family struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the man the evidence revealed. For detectives, the match was only the beginning. The focus now turned to building an airtight case, ensuring justice would finally be served while preserving the integrity of the investigation. The name Daniel Pomple became a symbol of betrayal, A turning point where decades of cold, unanswered questions began to resolve. And yet, one question remained haunting. What had happened to baby Allison? The community braced for answers, uncertain if closure would ever come. On a crisp morning in 2024, Daniel Pompel was taken into custody. The news spread through Strasburg like wildfire. Police moved quickly but carefully, ensuring the arrest would withstand legal scrutiny. Friends and neighbors watched in disbelief as the man they had seen at community events, school functions, and church gatherings was led away in handcuffs. Detectives briefed the media, explaining how decades-old evidence, combined with modern DNA analysis and forensic genealogy, had finally exposed the killer. The arrest confirmed what forensic science had revealed, ending a chapter of uncertainty that had dominated the town's collective memory. For the family of Selena Dalton, there was a mixture of relief and sorrow. Justice had arrived, but the loss remained profound. The community's shock was compounded by the realization that someone so close had hidden a deadly secret for so long. Every resident now faced the uncomfortable truth. Evil can live among the familiar, and sometimes, trust can be the perfect disguise for betrayal. The arrest was just the beginning, opening the path for prosecution and, perhaps, eventual answers about baby Allison. Once Daniel Pompey was in custody, investigators set out to reconstruct the events of that fateful day in 1998, using old witness statements, traffic records, and forensic data. Detectives created a timeline from Selena's last known moments to the discovery of the crime scene. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses, once overlooked, was re-examined with modern enhancement techniques. Small details, like a neighbor's fleeting sighting of a vehicle, or a sound captured in 911 call logs, helped fill gaps in the story. Experts mapped the interior of Selena's home, identifying points of struggle and likely paths taken by both victim and perpetrator. Every reconstructed minute offered insights into motive, opportunity, and the perpetrator's calculated behavior. The investigation revealed chilling precision. The crime was committed swiftly, leaving minimal evidence behind, and the removal of baby Allison was premeditated. Detectives worked to understand not just the sequence of events, but the mindset behind them. By piecing together the timeline, the cold case transformed from a decades-old mystery into a coherent narrative, a story of betrayal, manipulation, and a relentless pursuit of justice. For the Dalton family, every year without answers was a heavy burden. Parents, siblings, and extended relatives endured endless questions, sleepless nights, and the constant ache of uncertainty. They held on to hope, believing that one day the truth would emerge. Each news report of a missing child, each cold case solved elsewhere, rekindled both hope and fear. When detectives finally returned with modern tools, the family's patience was tested anew. Interviews were conducted with care, and every piece of evidence was explained in detail. The family relived the trauma, but they also began to see progress after decades of stagnation. Their resilience and determination became central to the investigation, reminding the team of the human stakes behind every clue. While the arrest of Daniel Pompel brought shock and disbelief, it also provided a measure of relief. The long nightmare was ending. Yet, the lingering question of baby Allison's fate continued to weigh on them. Their story underscored a vital truth. For victims' families, closure is a journey, not a single moment. And the pursuit of justice is never truly complete until every unanswered question is resolved. Even after Daniel Pompel's arrest, one question haunted everyone. Where was baby Allison Dalton? Despite the breakthrough in Selena's case, Allison remained missing, her fate unknown. Detectives scoured every possible relatives, acquaintances, and locations tied to Pompel, but no concrete evidence emerged. The community, already reeling from the shocking arrest, now faced a second layer of anxiety. Flyers, social media campaigns, and public appeals were renewed, hoping someone, somewhere, held information that could lead to the child. Investigators considered every scenario. Was Allison hidden, adopted illegally, or tragically lost to circumstances beyond their control? Every theory carried weight, but without proof, nothing could be confirmed. The mystery of Allison's disappearance added a lingering, emotional depth to the case, emphasizing the cruel reality that even with justice served for one crime, the consequences of the past still haunted the present. Families and neighbors watched, hoping that the missing child's story would one day find resolution. Strasburg was left reeling in the wake of Daniel Pompel's arrest. Residents struggled to reconcile their memories of a friendly, reliable neighbor with the horrifying reality revealed by modern forensic science. Shock turned to grief as families processed the betrayal, realizing that someone they trusted had hidden a dark secret for over 26 years. Community meetings were tense, conversations hushed, and social circles fractured. Parents worried about their own children, wondering how Allison danger could hide behind familiarity. Friends of Daniel expressed disbelief, while those closest to Selena felt a complex mix of relief and sorrow. Local media captured every emotional nuance, chronicling the town's struggle with disbelief and fear. For law enforcement, the case became a study in human psychology as much as forensics, demonstrating how deception can infiltrate even the most tight-knit communities. Strasburg's streets, once quiet, were now filled with whispers of betrayal, the echoes of a crime that had lingered in the hearts of its residents for decades. The town had learned a bitter truth: evil can hide in plain sight, and justice, though delayed, has a way of uncovering even the deepest secrets. With Daniel Pomple in custody, the focus shifted to ensuring that the case would withstand the scrutiny of the courtroom. Detectives, prosecutors, and forensic experts collaborated closely, reviewing every detail from the original investigation and the modern breakthroughs. Witness statements were re-examined, and timelines meticulously reconstructed to create an airtight narrative. The preserved evidence, blood samples, DNA fragments, Phoebus was catalogued and cross-referenced with updated forensic reports to ensure credibility. Prosecutors worked to anticipate defense strategies, preparing for every potential challenge to the DNA evidence, genealogical links, and investigative methods. Expert witnesses, including forensic genealogists and DNA specialists, were scheduled to testify, providing clear explanations of how decades-old evidence now conclusively tied Pomple to Selena Dalton's murder. Investigators also reviewed Daniel's activities during the years following the crime, documenting patterns, alibis, and inconsistencies that could establish motive, opportunity, and The meticulous preparation reflected the gravity of the case. The conviction depended not only on scientific evidence, but also on the clarity of the story presented to the jury. Every detail mattered, every witness statement counted, and every forensic breakthrough had to be communicated in a way the court could understand. For law enforcement and prosecutors, the months leading to trial became a relentless exercise in precision, strategy, and determination, ensuring that justice, delayed for over 26 years, would finally be served. The trial of Daniel Pomple captivated Strasburg and drew national attention. From the opening statements, it was clear this would not be an ordinary case. Prosecutors painted a detailed picture of betrayal and calculated violence, emphasizing the meticulous forensic work that tied Pomple to Selena Dalton's murder. Defense attorneys countered with skepticism, questioning the reliability of decades-old evidence and the interpretation of genealogical DNA. Jurors listened intently as expert witnesses explained complex scientific methods in clear, understandable terms, turning what was once an invisible trail into an undeniable chain linking Pomple to the crime. Every word in the courtroom was deliberate. The prosecutor's narrative aimed to humanize the victim, emphasizing the loss and the years of uncertainty endured by her family. Defense strategies sought to exploit any gaps or inconsistencies, attempting to sow doubt. The tension was palpable, with every testimony, exhibit, and cross-examination contributing to the larger story of decades-long deception. For the community and the family, the courtroom became the stage where the long-awaited pursuit of justice would unfold, turning years of frustration, shock, and fear into a narrative that would finally demand accountability. The opening statements set the tone for a trial that was as much about uncovering the truth as it was about confronting. The emotional scars left behind the courtroom fell silent as forensic experts took the stand, each one a crucial piece of the puzzle linking Daniel Pomple to Selena Dalton's murder. DNA analysts explained how fragments, preserved for over 26 years, had finally yielded a complete profile. Using modern techniques, they traced the sample to distant relatives, gradually narrowing the genetic trail until it led directly to Pomple. Genealogists illustrated family trees on large visual displays, showing the intricate connections that had once been invisible. Fiber experts demonstrated how minute strands collected from the crime scene matched items from Pomple's home, confirming his presence in Selena's environment. The testimony was meticulous, each detail carefully explained to ensure the jury understood the weight of the evidence. Prosecutors emphasized the precision of these methods, highlighting how technology had advanced to overcome the limitations of the original investigation. Witnesses described the step-by-step process of evidence handling, DNA extraction, and verification, leaving no room for doubt about the authenticity of the findings. Every explanation reinforced the narrative of careful planning, calculated deception, and eventual exposure. For the jury, the combination of science, persistence, and modern forensic tools transformed abstract clues into an undeniable story. The evidence presented not only confirmed Pomple's guilt, but also demonstrated the extraordinary evolution of investigative techniques, proving that even decades-old crimes could no longer hide from justice. The courtroom became a place where science and law converged, turning the silent testimony of evidence into a compelling, undeniable truth. As the trial progressed, Strasburg grappled with a mixture of shock, relief, and lingering grief. Residents who had once trusted Daniel Pomple were forced to confront the reality that someone so familiar could harbor a dark, hidden life. Conversations at local cafes and town meetings reflected disbelief, sorrow, and a cautious sense of closure. Families expressed relief that decades of uncertainty were finally being addressed, yet the emotional wounds remained deep. Neighbors who had witnessed Pomple's quiet, everyday routines now struggled to reconcile their memories with the evidence presented in court. For many, the case became a painful reminder that trust can be deceptive and that appearances often conceal the truth. Law enforcement officers engaged with the community, providing updates and context to help residents understand the painstaking process that led to the arrest and trial. Mental health professionals advised families and witnesses on coping with trauma and the sudden resurgence of fear and doubt. Strasburg's collective memory was reshaped by the trial, blending horror and hope into a complex narrative. The town learned that while justice could be delayed, truth had a way of surfacing, forcing even the most tight-knit community to confront its past, reflect on its values, and prepare for the changes that justice inevitably brings. After months of meticulous investigation, courtroom strategy, and emotional testimony, the moment of reckoning arrived. The jury, tasked with weighing decades of evidence, listened intently as the final arguments were presented. Prosecutors summarized the painstakingly gathered DNA evidence, genealogical links, and fiber analysis that connected Daniel Pomple to Selena Dalton's murder. They emphasized the betrayal of trust, the long years of anguish endured by the victim's family, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Defense attorneys urged caution, highlighting gaps and urging the jury to consider reasonable doubt. Yet the weight of scientific evidence proved undeniable. When the verdict was guilty on all, counsel courtroom erupted in a mixture of tears, relief, and stunned silence. For Strasburg, it was a moment of collective catharsis, the end of a 26-year-long nightmare. Families felt a measure of closure, though the haunting absence of baby Allison remained. Law enforcement and forensic teams were lauded for their persistence and innovation, showing that even the coldest, oldest cases could be solved with dedication, science, and strategy. Justice, though delayed, had finally arrived, proving that truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way to surface. The community, scarred yet resilient, began the slow journey of healing, forever changed by a story that exposed betrayal, perseverance, and the unyielding power of modern investigative science.